World War II had been raging since 1939, and by 1941, Hitler's Germany seemed unstoppable. But when against another giant of the world, would Hitler's unstoppable war machine conquer the vast Soviet lands as easily as it had the rest of Europe? Or would the rugged Russian terrain and tough forces prove too much for the enemy? The Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, was seemingly at peace with Germany, thanks to a non-aggression treaty between the two superpowers, assuring that both nations would not attack each other, allowing them to focus on other fronts and divide Eastern Europe between them. But Hitler had always viewed the Soviet Union as Germany's ultimate enemy. So, in the early months of 1941, while Europe was still reeling from the shockwaves of the German offensives in the West, Hitler secretly began gathering a colossal force on the Soviet border. Operation Barbarossa wasn't just another military campaign for Hitler. It was his magnum opus, a grand plan to topple the Soviet giant and rewrite the world order. The scale of this battle was massive. On one side, you had the German forces with almost 150 divisions, made up of 3 million men. Among them, 19 were panzer divisions, equipped with about 3,000 tanks, 7,000 artillery pieces, and 2,500 aircraft. Adding to this were Finnish and Romanian troops over 30 divisions strong. Here's how it all started. On the morning of June 22, 1941, the German war machine rumbled into the Soviet Union without any formal declaration of war. 3 distinct army groups spearheaded this sudden invasion. To the north, General Wilhelm von Leib's forces pushed from East Prussia, aiming for the iconic city of Leningrad, setting their sights on its historical streets and squares. In the south, under the watchful eye of General Gerd von Rundstedt, armies launched from southern Poland and raced into Ukraine. Their objective was the city of Kiev, after which they planned a sweeping move to the coasts of the Black Sea. And at the heart of this immense assault, the Central Forces, led by General Fedor von Bock, charged forward, with Moscow, the jewel of Russia. With armored divisions under Generals Heinz Guderian and Hermann Hoth by his side, the march to capture the very soul of the Soviet Union was successfully moving forward. Now picture the Soviet Union stretching across continents. Their numbers, in terms of tanks and aircraft, actually tripled those of the Germans. The problem was that many of their weapons and machinery were too outdated. The Germans, perhaps arrogant or just naive, believed that the Soviet Union would implode from within, and that the very people under Stalin's regime would reject their leader, leading to a collapse. This belief envisioned a USSR that would crumble within 3 to 6 months of the invasion. The reason the Germans were so confident was that the surprise attack caught the Red Army off guard. Guderian's armored divisions, a symbol of German might, covered an astonishing 50 miles on the very first day. Within a week, they found themselves in Minsk, having moved 200 miles inwards, where they met Hoth's tanks. This is where the German infantry lagged, allowing a significant portion of Soviet forces to escape narrowly. The Soviet response was less of strategy and more of raw determination, They made mistakes, but the Red Army's resilience was evident. Isolated units fought non-stop, continuing to hold vital road centers and slowing the German offense. When Guderian's forces reached Smolensk, again meeting Hoth's tanks in a pincer movement, they captured another 200,000 Soviets. However, pockets of fierce Soviet resistance remained. In July, the Germans faced more obstacles. Rainstorms turned the Russian landscapes into muddy swamps, hampering their supply lines. The Soviets, on the other hand, burned their own crops, destroyed bridges, and relocated factories eastward, ensuring the invaders couldn't utilize their assets. German intelligence, perhaps a bit too confident, or just miscalculating, severely underestimated the depth of Soviet reserves. The Soviets managed to bring more than 200 fresh divisions to the front. That's 360 divisions in total, more than double what the Germans expected. By mid-July, the Germans had come extremely close to Moscow, with only 200 miles separating them from the Soviet capital. But internal disputes between Hitler and the high command of the German army about future strategic objectives led to a lot of back and forth. At the same time, German forces swiftly overcame Soviet defenses in Ukraine, capturing significant territories and a staggering 520,000 Soviet soldiers by September. A lot of this was due to the flawed strategies of Soviet leaders and Stalin's refusal to allow his forces to retreat and regroup. As winter came around, Hitler's forces, led by General Bach, charged towards Moscow, capturing 600,000 Soviets at Vyazma. While they were pretty close to the target, the biting cold, coupled with their ill-preparedness for the harsh weather, brought their advance to a halt. Meanwhile, the Soviets, led by General Zhukov and supported by cold-hardened Siberian troops, launched a fierce counteroffensive, marking the beginning of a significant pushback against the invading German forces. With the Soviet army's resilience, they managed to fend off the German forces, never letting them capture Moscow. Operation Barbarossa ultimately ended in December 1941. Despite the Red Army suffering immense casualties, it was the Germans' failure to subdue them that truly highlighted the turning point. The Soviet resistance, coupled with the rough weather and strategic misjudgments from the Germans, challenged the course of the entire war. The story of Operation Barbarossa reminds us that the mightiest of ambitions can be crushed by the combined forces of nature and resilience. At the end of the day, it's not just about having more soldiers or tanks, but about the spirit and will to keep fighting.